Hello and welcome to my Crysis 2 review. Right, so basically Crysis 2 is a first person shooter. It's set in a kind of a post-apocalyptic New York. Okay, so let's not get too drawn into making too many conclusions about why it's in New York and why it's in devastation and the emotions that are trying to be evoked. It's really not worth the speculation, although it is intriguing if you play it and you think about it. I'm just saying. Anywho, you play a guy called Alcatraz, no references there either, who gets rescued by a minigun toting C-3PO called Prophet. Without going into any spoilers, let's just say Prophet saves you, and then for reasons that are as mysterious as the odd socks in my wardrobe, he decides to slap you into his metallic suit, then commits suicide. You can't look that bad, surely. But anyway, seems a bit extreme, doesn't it? Well, yeah, it is. But it kind of makes sense as the story evolves, despite initially being a little bit abrupt, but compelling. So let me move on to the gameplay now. The gameplay sees you wandering around trying to uncover what on earth is going on. Initially there's troops out to get you, and before long you're up against alien bugs that sometimes resemble squid-like muppets. The whole way through you're given directions and objectives by contacts who are quite charismatic and well considered, which, you know, it all gives you a structured framework to commit bloody murder in, basically. There's a reasonable level of customization in the game revolving around your weapons and your nanosuit. You can adjust your loadout at fairly regular intervals. There's ammo places all over the place, weapons strewn all over the place, like, you know, the aftermath of an 18th birthday party, for the love of God. Anyway, you can customize what type of sights you use, whether you have a silencer, whether it's automatic fire, blah 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 blah. And in a similar way, you can customize your suit to offer more resistance to bullets, more stealth, quicker recharge, as well as enhancing special moves like air stomp and things like that. Both of these aspects tend to bring a pretty decent, although not extensive, level of customization to Crysis 2 that tends to fit well with your type of gameplay, whether it's sneaking around like a cross between a ninja and Robocop, or an all guns blazing approach like Terminator, or indeed if you fancy yourself as some kind of gymnastic Iron Man. All of this might sound quite arbitrary, but it isn't really. As you move through the game, it becomes quickly apparent that you have to consider your moves. Often you're prompted to seek tactical options which might give you good vantage points, lead you to all sorts of beefy weapons, or allow you to flank and stealth kill enemies with a kind of quite an abandon, even though they're just trying to take a sneaky cigarette while their sergeant's not looking. Anyway, this whole thing leads me on to the AI, and this is where my main problem is with the game. But hear me out. The AI is, for want of a better term, a bit like a fish on a bicycle. It kind of makes sense, but it kind of really doesn't. By that I mean that the AI works how you expect it should sometimes, while at other times it simply doesn't work at all, or at least reacts really stupidly. Here's an example. If I shoot one guy and the guy next to him immediately reacts, either firing back at me because I'm not in stealth, or because I am in stealth, he immediately takes to cover, that makes sense, that's reasonable. Now I can reload the same instance and make the same move, and one of the guys will just stand there, not having noticed that his fallen comrade, whose blood is now cascading over his boots, is kind of lying in a kind of a bloody mess right next to him. And he might make a radio call, he might not. Now this is a bit of an unusual example, but it is a little bit like that. Not all the time, but every now and then. But there are others where the AI works extremely well, but it is kind of spoilt a little bit when these kind of oddities happen. Enemies will go to their downed companions to try and help, something which seems quite reasonable to do, and you can use it to your advantage sometimes to, if you've got a lot of enemies that you need to kill, while at other times they simply do very little or just act strangely. Now, while this didn't spoil the game for me overall, it did detract from what was an otherwise quite engaging and sometimes challenging game. Graphically, the game is really nice looking, and despite its setting of utter devastation, it delivers big time on looks. Now, to some this might be a put off, or it looks too nice, it must be really demanding on my computer. Well, no, it's not actually that demanding at all. Okay, so there's not masses of space to roam around in, but nonetheless, at no point do you feel too boxed in and without options, and it all looks really good. There's a lot of detail. All of the in-game action and the cinematics are very well put together, and I have to admit to being impressed with the level of detail that's been put in. It all adds up to a very comparable gaming experience overall. Sound also plays a large part in that experience too, whether it's birds flying overhead, a machine gun, running noises, anything like that, although sometimes there's some kind of odd timing with music, but the music's pretty good, and it really doesn't matter all that much overall. It doesn't spoil anything. It's not bad. Now, moving on to the kind of replayability side of things, although I hate using words like replayability, but anyway, overall Crysis 2 does have a decent amount to offer. Aside from the campaign, which can be played on at differing levels of difficulty, obviously, the hardest of which is insanely challenging, or at least for me and one or two other people that I know that play it. There's a decent multiplayer experience, which is quite a refreshing, fun experience, especially when you're talking about suit customization that allows you to withstand more bullets, or be in stealth and things like that. There's a lot going on there, and not just the kind of other aspects of special moves like sliding, car kicking, and all those kinds of cool things that can allow you to do some pretty cool little kill moves. But having said that, I wouldn't class Crysis 2 as a kind of a breakthrough game. It doesn't achieve new territory really, not that that matters, but while those certain aspects show a great deal of promise, it's a bit like cooking a birthday dinner for your mate and sending out invites to all his friends and family for an awesome party, planning it for weeks and everything like that, and then kind of forgetting to invite the person whose birthday it is. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that there's a kind of a lot of unrealised potential here. However, don't let that put you off. It's a good game and well worth looking into. If anything, you'll enjoy stomping around like some kind of platinum clad Godzilla melting faces simply because some bearded hippie told you to. And no, this isn't a back reference to my earlier comments about New York in a setting of devastation. Honest. In short, check it out, take a closer look at it. There's a diamond in the rough with this game despite its occasional flaws, and fingers crossed these types of games might one day result in an awesome one. Anyway, as usual, my scores will come up at the end. If you want to see more of the gameplay or watch me playing Crysis 2, God help you and God help me, then check out my channel's playlists or visit the website. Until next time, be you Ubal, my friends, be Ubal.
You know it's time for us to step it up another level now, cause we finished warming up, so we rise up, elevate to maintain, fill up with octane and fan the flame. We regain all the names the enemy took